Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 165. I'm Victoria Gallagher, the Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 best-selling author of the book Practical Law of Attraction: Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. And I'm also the founder of hiptalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores today. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Tami Simon. Tami Simon is the founder of Sounds True, one of the world's leading wisdom-based multimedia companies whose mission is to wake up the world. Sounds True publishes groundbreaking authors and teachers with topics ranging from mindfulness, neuroscience, psychology, trauma therapy, and more. Tami also founded the Inner MBA, a collaborative effort between Sounds True, LinkedIn, Wisdom 2.0, and Mindful NYU to train the next generation of conscious business leaders by teaching them the inner skills required for success in today's environment. And she can be found on Inner Balance on soundstrue.com, and then also on Facebook/Sounds True. And today, Tami is going to be sharing some of her insights on the power of your mind in business. And so welcome to the show, Tami.
Thank you. Great to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I remember many years ago, I mean, we're talking probably 25, 30 years ago when I was pretty fresh on my personal development journey, and I would see these CDs in the Whole Foods section, and there was a whole bunch of them, and they would say "Sounds True," and they were all of my favorite authors, and so fast forward to today, and here I am talking to the the founder of these Sounds True CDs. So thank you so much for putting that together, because you definitely have been waking up the world with these audios.
Wonderful. Thank you. I
Yeah.
remember, of course, our spinner racks at Whole Foods, pre-downloadable audio days. And of course, we migrated from cassettes to then CDs, and now it's all downloadable.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm kind of in the same boat with my hypnotic programs. They were
Yeah.
cassettes, then CD, now downloads, and pretty much now it's on the app. So, how did you get started developing this multi-million-dollar media company from scratch as a female founder in the 1980s?
Right. Well, clearly it was a long time ago. So I was 22 years old, and we have to dial back 36 years now. And I had dropped out of college, and I had dropped out because the type of learning that I was really interested in was experiential learning. And I thought to myself, any mystic worth their salt doesn't get a degree from a religious studies department at a university. They live a type of mystical life. So I left Swarthmore College at the end of my sophomore year. I traveled in India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, and I got deeply immersed in the practice of meditation. And when I discovered the practice of meditation, I felt a type of homecoming, and also had this sense that I would devote my life to introducing these types of inner awareness practices to as many people as possible. And then I came out to Boulder, Colorado. My parents were like, you have to finish and get a degree. And I was like, I don't want a degree. And so they said, we're not going to continue to support you. And I said, that makes sense. You shouldn't support me. So I'm working as a waitress at a Chinese restaurant, but I have a volunteer radio show where I'm interviewing spiritual teachers. And I thought to myself, the kind of education I couldn't get in academia, I can find it on my own. I can get it by interviewing the teachers who come through Boulder for our community radio station. And in the process of interviewing someone, I started to get to know him, and he and I were talking. And at this point, my father died right as he and I were preparing to do our interview. And when my father died, I inherited a small amount of money. It was about 50 grand. And I said to this gentleman, who I was going to be interviewing on my show, I've inherited this small amount of money and I don't know what to do with it. And he said, why don't you put it into yourself? And I was like, well, great idea. But me and myself, we don't know what to do. That's the whole problem. I'm waitressing, like, I don't know what to do. And he looked at me and he said, Tami, you know what you want to do. And I was like, what? And he said, come back in a few days and we'll talk about it. And I walked out of his office and I had a very strange experience. But the experience as I walked out of his office is that I felt like my feet were not on the ground anymore, but they were a bit above the ground. So that was the first thing that got my attention. I was a little bit like, what's going on here? Why aren't my feet touching the ground? And then I heard a voice, and of course, I'll never know if that was just an inner wisdom voice or where it was coming from. But I heard these words: disseminate spiritual wisdom. And my
Beautiful.
feet hit the ground and I started thinking about how to do it. And Sounds True was born from that.
That is beautiful. I love that story so much. There's so many pieces of that I really resonate with, and when putting, my programs together. And so it's beautiful. And you're right. You can't really get the kind of wisdom that you need in the typical old methods of, just going to college and getting a degree, and you have to experience it.
Yeah, I think especially in the 80s, the idea that you would go through academia and lead with your personal experience, personal voice. That's not what we were supposed to be getting a degree in. We were supposed to be getting a degree in the analysis and critical thinking of other people's work. And that I was like, well, that's not really the point. Like when you're trying to figure out how to lead your life, you have to go inward, not outward. And so I felt quite called to that. And I knew that was what was most important to me. So I had to take the leap. And, at Sounds True, I knew I wanted to keep learning, because for me, that's how you grow. And so the devotion was really to put out materials for other people that they could learn from, but also in the process, I would keep learning and growing. And that was really the original design of the business.
Yeah. And the integrity of continuing to pursue your own inner journey while helping other people to get, to pursue their inner journey.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. So tell us a little bit about why it's so important for people to develop these inner skills, and why is it like more why is it developing these inner skills so much more important than maybe the hard skills, especially post pandemic?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's really interesting, this phrase, there are hard skills and soft skills. And one of the lead trainers in a new program, Sounds True, has put together. It's called the Inner MBA. It's a 9-month training program specifically for business people on growing themselves so they can grow their business. This gentleman, Jeremy Hunter, who is a professor at the Peter F. Drucker School of Management, he says it really should be the hard skills and the hardest skills. And I like that because it's true. And I think there's also a subtle denigration when you hear soft skills, like they're softy bofty, but they're not really the thing that make you money. They're not really strategy, finance, investment. And actually, that's where I'll disagree, because one of the sayings of Peter F. Drucker, who's a terrific management expert, is that culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day, or maybe it was strategy for lunch. I think culture will eat strategy every meal and every snack you might ever have. And the reason behind that saying is your culture, which is really what you create with other people. As soon as you start having a team and working with others, when you're not a solo operator anymore, and if your business is going to get to be any size, before you know it, you have a virtual assistant. Before you know it, you have a team of people, you have marketers, you have graphic artists, you have a whole team. And how that team works together, the quality of the interactions, the type of, and this is a key phrase as well, psychological safety that exists or doesn't exist on that team. That's what creates your culture, and that's what creates your effectiveness, your ability to execute, your ability to not get stuck in these wasteful dramas, which is where a lot of teams go. A lot of teams spend so much of their time just, blaming each other, or, not bringing out the best in each other. And so when you talk about why put an emphasis on this, well, first of all, it's a critical key to success. It's a critical key to financial success. Okay, that's one huge piece. But for me, there's a further piece, which is when it comes to human fulfillment, when it comes to lying down on our deathbed and reflecting on our lives, or even just going to bed at night, any night, or taking a nap in the middle of the day and reflecting on our lives in any moment, what really matters? And of course, it matters how many people listen to our podcast or read our books or buy our products, but it also matters how we feel. How do we feel about our relationships? How do we feel about the people we're working with? Did we, stomp on a bunch of people to get to this moment? Or did we make a whole hell of a lot of friends? Do we have a whole hell of a lot of people who will say about us, oh my God, so-and-so is such a generous person. So-and-so is lifting up our society. So-and-so is making a contribution with their life. In the wake of their life, there's so much goodness and benefit for others. I think all of us as human beings, we yearn for that. It's part of our nature as humans to offer ourselves up in service. And we need to be trained on how to do that in business specifically, because I think a lot of traditional business training has us thinking in a disembodied way. Business is business. Just remember that, what really matters? What really matters is shareholder return. And I would say that idea is dead. It's dead for me. I think it's dead for our culture long-term. It will have to die if we're going to have a healthy human culture moving forward. We have to say that business, yes, is about shareholder return, but it's also about human beings loving each other, solving social problems, creating value for future generations, other concerns. And that's really what the Inner MBA is about. And that's what inspires me.
I love it. There's so much richness and truth in what you're talking about. And I can relate on many, many different levels. I mean, when I first took the journey to starting my own business, and my business was about making people better ultimately. But I was spending so much time on the business and really in this hustle mode that I was forgetting to really take that time to continue pursuing my own personal development. And I fell flat on my face.
Yeah.
Because I was not, I wasn't being true to myself, and I wasn't putting the emphasis on me continuing to grow as a person. And you must grow as a person in order for your business to thrive. But also, just keeping in mind too, the reason why we want our businesses and everything to thrive is because we think it's going to bring us some sort of inner transformation, some joy, some peace, something. And so, but we have, so it's, we have it so backward. And so
Yeah.
doing this inner journey is really, that needs to come first, and everything else is going to line up with who you are.
Yeah. And I think it won't take long for anyone to discover that if they burn themselves out with an achievement drive, they're not going to be around in a balanced way, bringing their best to what they're trying to achieve. It doesn't work that way. We need to take care of ourselves, and we also need to take care of the people who work with us. We need to take care of each other. And one of the things I learned in the Inner MBA, and it makes really good sense to me, which is, first of all, when you take good care of yourself, you can be at your best. And otherwise you can't. We all know that. We all know that if we don't sleep for many nights in a row, or if we're eating terrible food or whatever it might be, we're not at our best. We know that. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, if we take care of each other, if we take care of the people we work with, in my case, if I take care of the employees, it sounds true, they'll take good care of our customers. They'll take good care of our authors. They will pass it through the whole company. The whole company becomes a loving, caring, the brand starts to shine from the inside out. Everybody who touches it says, wow, what's going on? And it's because people feel it. When you go the extra mile for others, they go the extra mile for you, and they
So
go the
true.
extra mile for the customers. So that's also absolutely critical to creating success, to creating a successful brand that's respected in today's world. I think the other thing, because one of the things I've been reflecting a lot about, is this notion of conscious business rising, that we're living during a time when having a conscious business is that realization, that awareness is growing. And I think some of it is, you don't get away anymore with anything, and that's good. And I think that's the power of the Me Too movement and all that has come in its wake, and the power of social media, and the power of people looking in at companies and posting. I mean, you can find out almost anything. There are no secrets any longer. And so if you want your company to be well revered and well respected, you actually are under pressure from externals to walk your talk. I believe we're under pressure from internal drives as well, internal imperatives to be congruent, to be people of integrity. But even if you're just concerned with what the external world is saying, it's time to make every part of your organization feel consonant, because your laundry, dirty or clean, is seen by everybody. And so we have to make our organizations internally beautiful if we want them to be perceived as beautiful from the outside. We see
I
this. We see corporate leaders getting, or media personalities, all kinds of people. You can't go around and preach one thing and act another in your organization and think you're going to get away with it. You're not.
It's so true. You have to be, I mean, you have to act as if everything is transparent, and
Yep.
that I have a philosophy of acting as though I'm being watched, because the truth of the matter is I am being watched. I'm being watched by the most important person in this world, and that is my soul, who I am. And I really believe that when you come from that conscious place, when you come from that place of, listen, I have nothing to hide. I have no secrets. I'm not ashamed of anything. I'm not ashamed of the way that I treat myself, my husband, my friends, my family, my coworkers, the way I treat my clients. I'm not ashamed of anything that I do. And I think if more people came from that, um, I mean, duh, the world would
Yep.
be a better place. It
Yep.
just really makes sense.
Yeah, well said. I think there's this idea, and I think this is part of what the Inner MBA is trying to shift. There's this idea, well, that's all really nice speak for all of you do-gooders over there. But if you want to actually make real money in business, you need to act differently. And that's what we're trying to say. No, that's not true, actually. And that's certainly not going to be true in the future. And that's why part of the Inner MBA program, we feature some serious big shot CEOs. Rose Macario, who was the former CEO of Patagonia for more than a decade, and Eileen Fisher, and Chip Conley, who started Joie de Vivre. And these are people who are actually demonstrating in running, large companies that putting these principles into action is better for your business in terms of performance, employee loyalty, employee engagement, which is a huge factor. How engaged are the people that work with you? And so many different factors, as well as this deep soul fulfillment.
So tell me a little bit about why, why you feel it's no longer an option, but it's a necessity that we
Well,
have
part of it is, I
to.
think customers are voting with their dollars. Customers
Mhm,
are supporting brands they believe in.
mhm,
Customers want to support businesses that stand for something more than just making money from them. They want to support businesses. I'll go this far to say that they feel some type of connection with the values, connection with the greater purpose, connection with where that company stands on social issues. When you think about the brands you love and why you love them, you feel that they have a stance in the world. You know what they care about. So customers are voting with their dollars for those kinds of companies. Then on top of it, employees are voting for who they want to work for, who they want to work with. And you better be prepared to answer some pretty difficult questions about what's our Jedi philosophy, our justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion philosophy at this company. Do we have one? You want me to just come, work for you without understanding how this company is addressing climate change in the future? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and just work over here while I see the planet go up in flames. So many young people are looking for meaningful jobs. And if you want to hire the best and the brightest, the most creative, the ones who are the most innovative, you have to have a different kind of company as well. So now we're talking both about your staff and we're
mhm.
talking about your customers. Then on top of it, the science around mindfulness and meditation and personal presence. I mean, the science is in, the data is in. And just like we learned 30, 40 years ago that exercise enables us to be in better health and for our minds to work better. So now you have companies who have gyms, corporate gyms. We now know the same thing about mindfulness. And many of us who are working in businesses, what do we use as our number one instrument of work? It's our mind.
Mhm.
I know this is the Power of Your Mind podcast. We need our minds to be in good shape, open, able to focus, not filled with worry, dread, and anxiety and negative thinking when we come to explore a possibility with the group and how we're going to solve it. So it's now also clear that we need to take responsibility for how our minds are operating and do some basic physical fitness, mental hygiene, whatever metaphor you want to use for it, so that we're in a good place. We feel good. We're open. We're ready. And it's also clear that if you want to bring out the best in anyone you work with, knowing the skills of deep listening, empathy, taking their position, really being able to say, oh, your perspective's totally different than mine. That's so interesting. And in fact, we need those differences around the table, and understanding it and taking it into account versus like, come on, shut up. I just want my perspective. I just want my perspective. It's clearly right? It's clearly the right way. We're missing so much. So all of this information about what brings out the best in a group, it's now available to us. And we each have a responsibility to know the skills and embody them when we're part of a team at work.
It's so important. I absolutely believe that the mind is the most important thing because it's even above health. And I mean, without your mind, if you were losing your health, you could potentially get your health back with the power of your mind. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work the other way around. You can't get your mind back just with your health. You have to have your mind to get your mind back. You have to have your mind to get anywhere. And you have to have and so many people, they just kind of want to brush it off as, oh, this is something I'm going to do for a couple of weeks, or I'm going to take this one class, I'm going to read this one book, I'm going to strengthen my mindset for a little while. But they don't realize this is an ongoing thing, just like going to the gym, just like eating right, just like drinking enough water. The mind is always there and it always needs to be nurtured. So
Mm-hmm.
I, I'd love to find out and share with our listeners a little bit more about what's involved with your Inner MBA program. It sounds
Sure.
really interesting.
Sure. So we've run the program once. We just had our graduation for our inaugural class, and our second cohort begins in September of this year. And it's a 9-month online immersion program with people joining from all over the world. And it's created in partnership with LinkedIn, and the head of mindfulness and compassion training at LinkedIn, Scott Shute, is one of the core trainers, and also a partnership with Wisdom 2.0, which is an event business based in the Bay Area that looks at the intersection of technology, culture change, and wisdom. And then when people complete the program, they get a certificate of completion from a division of NYU called Mindful NYU. And there are different components. There's this CEO storytelling track, where, as I mentioned, we talk to leading CEOs who are focused on consciousness in the workplace and social impact. There's also a business trainer component, and then there's a wisdom teacher component. And in the wisdom teacher component, we have contributions from Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach and Sharon Salzberg and others who are teaching wisdom practices applied to the workplace. So that gives you a sense. And then on top of it, we have these conscious business accelerator workshops that are included throughout the 9 months, which really help you apply these skills to some of the challenges of business. So there's a conscious marketing accelerator, a finance accelerator, a negotiation accelerator. So you learn how to take all of these inner skills and apply them to the actual nuts and bolts and challenges of business.
So it's really structured in a lot of ways, like doing college education, like an MBA program. And so, but it's more for your mind. It's more for.
It's an inner MBA. And interestingly, we just added a new faculty member. His name's Ed Hess, and he's a professor at the University of Virginia in their business school. And he wrote a book called Humility is the New Smart, and then a new book called Hyperlearning. And he studied quite a bit. How do we help people not get replaced by machines, basically? In the age of automation, how are you going to keep your job? What's going to make you, human, so capable, so special, and here are some of the keywords: creative, so able to come from uncertainty and a place of pure potential, pure receptivity, inner peace and knowing, because machines will be able to do any of the activities that are just repetitive actions from the past. That'll all be automated in the future. So he believes that the inner MBA is actually the MBA of the future, that in the future, teaching people how to act in ways that are simply repetitions of academic learning, that's not going to do it. The business people of the future will have to know, how do you sit in uncertainty and find an innovative path forward that comes from your human feeling, from human inspiration, from a unique kind of way that each one of us feels inside. We want to bring our best gifts forward, that kind of thing. So I love that, because he's really strong that the inner MBA is actually the MBA of the future.
It really makes a lot of sense, because what you're saying is true. I mean, humans are being replaced by machines, and what's going to make us different from the machines is what we learn on the inside, and how we learn to, to navigate with empathy. I mean, you cannot teach a machine empathy. You cannot teach a machine, any of the skills that you just mentioned. So it really is pretty pretty important to learn these skills. Who would you say is ideal for taking this type of training?
Sure. Well, I think any entrepreneur or leader in business, anybody who is a manager or works in the people department in businesses, we have a lot of coaches who are part of the program, who are learning all of these latest approaches to accelerating growth, personal growth. We have people working as solopreneurs and small businesses. So it's really a wide range of people, a lot of people in transition who are moving from potentially a more traditional career into a more social impact career.
Mhm. And what kind of time commitment is involved? I understand it's 9
Yeah,
months, but like throughout the day, like,
sure.
is it pretty intensive? And
It's 1 to 2 hours a week.
oh,
So
okay.
it's not nothing, but it's also totally doable for anybody, even really busy people. And the reason there's 1 to 2 hours is it depends how deeply you want to engage in some of the live questions and answers and things like that. But I think to really keep up with the program, you'd have to put in about an hour a week.
And you just answered one of my questions. So it is a lot. There's some
Oh
live
yeah,
interactive.
there's a huge community component. And in listening to the reports from the first graduates of the program, what I learned is that the Inner MBA community, which probably will come as no surprise, was as valuable to the people who participated in the program as any of the curriculum that was delivered, because people learn so much from each other. So people had the opportunity to be part of a small group, to share their learning, to share their questions. There are monthly community mentoring calls. There are monthly happy hours. So there are a lot of opportunities for people to connect with other Inner MBA students across the world.
This really sounds amazing. And you're answering questions like as if I'm, you're just one step ahead of my questions with the community. I was literally going to ask about that. So you can connect with people in small groups and
Oh yeah.
get-togethers, and maybe like even find people locally
Oh yeah,
that.
there's a whole portal where you have the opportunity to reach out and connect. There are lunch and learns. It's really, different people engaged in different levels. So there was a group of people from Brazil who created the Espresso Yourself group. And they would meet for an espresso and talk about what they were learning in the program. And so we've created these networking tools within the community, and then people can use them and magnetize the groups that fit for them, that are what they're interested in.
Well, I would have to say, you've definitely outdone yourself with this technology, this college, however however you would call it, with your program, with your Inner MBA program. It sounds really amazing. I mean, you already were such a pioneer with sounds true at, in the early stages. And now once again, you're a pioneer of this new type of learning and program. And to me, it sounds like exactly what is needed, exactly how it's needed, exactly when it's needed. And it definitely sounds like something I think our audience should take a look at. So how does a person get involved?
Sure.
You mentioned it, and today, it's May 27th, 2021, just because, this podcast will be listened to for many years to come. But your next enrollment is going to be for September 21.
Yeah. And then there'll be another one in September 2022, and hopefully for many years to come. And if you visit innermbaprogram.com, innermbaprogram.com, that's where you can learn more and apply. And we'd love to have people join us. We also have a very generous scholarship program for people who can't afford the full tuition. And really where we're coming from is that I think each one of us at this point in human history is called, I really believe this, to bring forth our hearts and do everything we can to make a difference for the future of the human species. And what I discovered was that for me, that place is in business. I've lived 36 years as a business person, and every single institution needs to be reinvented with a new model of interdependence at its root system. And the way that many people were introduced to business was not with a model of interdependence. It was introduced with a me first model. And that's not going to work. It's not going to work for the future. And we can take good care of ourselves and good care of the planet at the same time, and we have to. So that's why I'm so motivated around it. I want more and more people to connect to this inner experience of interdependence and to remake and reinvent business with that type of vision. And I want to work with those people to do it.
Well, you have a great mission and a great vision, and I just want to wish you all the best with
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank you so
and
much.
yeah, it sounds amazing, and it's so true. It really, everything that you're saying, it just really just feels true to what's needed right now in our
Sounds true.
society. Sounds true. Yeah, it feels true. It sounds true. It looks true, but it sounds true. And so, with that said, do you have any final comments? Other than taking advantage of the
Sure.
course,
Sure.
any final words
Well,
of
I think my
wisdom?
my final comment, we just had, as I mentioned, the commencement of the
Mm-hmm.
first class, and I had the opportunity to share a brief commencement address. And really there were two main points, and I'll just make them here very briefly. The first was that I was hoping that the graduates would feel at the end of 9 months that their soul force had been liberated, so that each one of them knew that they had everything they needed to bring forth their voice and vision in the world. And then the second point was, let's reinvent the world of work. Let's reinvent it. Let's bring our creativity to it. So that's kind of my final point. I think that's what we need right now.
It's beautiful. I agree. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Your Mind podcast. And thank you, listeners. And yeah, definitely, listeners, go check out the Inner MBA program. And I look forward to hearing your feedback.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.